Hello, and welcome to another edition of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill. Glad you're with us tonight. Where
Westworld
do you want
night.
to start today, Jake?
We can start with the NBA playoffs, which have been pretty exciting.
Yeah, let's start with the NBA playoffs. I was blown away that New Orleans swept Portland. Blown away.
Yeah. Well, Drew Holiday has been the best guard in that series. Not Lillard, not McCollum. It's been Drew Holiday.
No, he played really, really well.
And playoff Rondo's probably been the second best guard.
Playoff when Rondo's doesn't, go off. He's as good as any guard in the league.
When he cares, yeah,
When he cares, and he cares obviously right now.
he does. And that team is just clicking. And again, Anthony Davis looks like the legitimate MVP, best player in basketball.
And Davis is solid.
Anthony Davis is phenomenal, offensively, defensively, and there's nobody that can match up with him in the league, as far as I can tell. I mean, who do you?
I would agree. He's a man child. I mean, there's nobody can deal with him.
And then you go to the other Western Series. Minnesota finally got a game, and it looked like they gave Karl Anthony Towns. He had a double-double. He got 25 touches, and they win.
Passes, I watched him.
What's that?
There's times when he should just go and make a move to the hoop, and he overpasses.
Yeah, it's true. But I mean, they went to him a lot, and they beat the Rockets. I mean, it's
Derrick Rose looked really good.
Derrick Rose is just. I know his career has been a
Maybe
bit.
Derrick Rose is in the right role right now,
Well, he's back with Tibbs, where he had all his success,
and he's not that guy.
and he's not the guy. He thinks he's still the guy. I think when I watch him play, though, or maybe he knows Butler's the guy.
Threes last night. He looked pretty good.
Yeah. But he's had those last just bizarre 2 years. He was like the most beloved player in basketball for the first 4 years he was there, up until his MVP campaign in Chicago. He was his Q rating was 100%. Everybody loved Derrick Rose. Then you had the injuries. Then you had sort of the bizarre behavior. Then he went to this debacle when he went to Cleveland. Quit, left basketball. I mean, and then now he's back and he's playing. I mean, it's a weird career.
It is. It hasn't turned out the way anybody thought it would, including Adidas.
No, far from Adidas. Adidas is trying to get their money back.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'd like to see the series stretch out. I mean, as I've stated obviously clearly, I'm a very anti-Houston person, so I'm at least hoping they can stretch it out a little bit and make it last a little bit longer. But
I'm watching. Utah is really a solid team.
and Donovan Mitchell is not a rookie. I mean, he is, but he isn't. Like he doesn't play
Donovan
like.
Mitchell is very, very impressive. I think, I thought Ben Simmons was a hands down rookie of the year, and he might be, but I'll tell you what, if somebody says to me co-rookies of the year, I would be fine with it because he's really amazing.
Yeah, he looks like young Dwayne Wade. He's just phenomenal. And that team on defense with Gobert anchoring down the middle. I mean,
Yeah,
and they're up 2-1.
really, really well,
Yeah, they're up 2-1 right now at home. So
and they're going to win that series because Oklahoma City might have the best players, but they sure don't have the best team.
I think they have the best player in Westbrook. I think Paul George is a weird player because he can't be the best player on the court ever. Because you even look back at Indiana, like he has games where he looks like playoff P, like he was in that first game, and then he disappears on offense a lot of the times, and that's been his MO his entire career. And I don't know why that is what it is, and Carmelo is just a shell of whatever Carmelo was at one point in his career. It's almost sad to watch. I really thought he was going to be able to come in for them and just, I don't know. I thought he was going to be like a 18-6, do some good smart basketball plays, and I don't know. And we have not seen any of that. He's a liability on offense. He's a liability on defense, and sadly they need him out there too.
It's a player option for next year too, right?
Yeah, I imagine you've got to take it if you're Carmelo, because no one's going to pay you anywhere near the amount of money he's supposed to get.
Absolutely.
I mean, unless James Dolan, hits his head again and wants to bring Carmelo back to New York to finish out and gives him some ridiculous deal. Like, I mean, he can't play.
Some Oklahoma City, I'm figuring out how I could buy him out to give him let him be a free agent, just buy him out. Give him half that money, tell him he's a free agent.
Yeah.
But I don't think he'll go for it.
No. And I don't know what his situation. I don't know what his status on the team is as far as socially, like if he and Russ get along or how that, if they're happy with that situation or not. But I think, they're going to be in a lot of trouble because they've traded away a couple of draft picks. I think next year you're going to have Russ, Steven Adams, whichever, other random free agents they pick up, and Carmelo, because I think Pierce is out of there, or not Pierce, George. So,
George.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be a very sad state in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, let's see what they can do.
But after as we move through their trades, they obviously traded Oladipo and Sabonis to Indiana, and Indiana looks fantastic. And looked like they might knock LeBron out of the playoffs in the first round for the first time in I don't know how many years.
Maybe his rookie year.
I was like, maybe his rookie year. If they even, I think they actually went further in his rookie year than that. I thought they lost to Boston, later in that series, but I mean, Cleveland is just a wreck. I really liked those trades they made at the trade deadline. I thought, the Clarkson, George Hill, Rodney Hood, Larry Nance. I thought that was going to be this quicker, faster, energetic team, but they're bad. And LeBron just can't do enough. And then they also, bizarrely, with all those players, including Love and Tristan Thompson's ridiculous contract, they're the highest paid roster in the league, and they're not this good, and they're bad.
True.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
I know. This is not a dominant. I don't know. I mean, I really wish Cousins was healthy because right now, watching this team, I really think that they could be the best team in the NBA with DeMarcus Cousins right now. With the injuries we have on Golden State, and Houston still being whatever Houston is, if you had the Drew Holiday, whatever that, along with Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins, that team could just roll, I think. But we obviously don't get to see that. But I mean, I think they've got a shot against Houston regardless of that. Although they're going to play the winner of Golden State San Antonio in the next round, so they're going to get Golden State. But we don't know what Steph's status is, so that still could be a really rough. That could be a rough series for Golden State.
Yeah.
Because they've been really banged up, and they just don't look like the team anymore.
No, I don't. They're going to win this series. San Antonio doesn't have everybody either.
No. But they made it. I saw somebody wrote an article about, sort of when they brought him back for this third season, they went out of their way to bring back Iguodala and Livingston, and they sort of talked about how, the Bulls teams would let guys like that go and try to bring in new hungry veterans that didn't get a championship ring. That you needed, part of keeping that run going is having new blood. And they, Golden State just kept running it back, which isn't obviously, but they were never able to bring in that next guy, the really hungry guy, to sort of propel that season. So, and I know Belichick does a little bit of that in New England as well, where he always tries to, he lets a few players walk off every Super Bowl team, brings in a new batch of guys, and, try to shake things up a little bit. But I also understand that if it's not broken, don't fix it kind of thing. So it works both ways, I guess. And then the Boston series. What's that?
Yeah, the Boston series is interesting too.
Well, the best player on the floor is clearly is Giannis, the Greek freak. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I think even if, obviously Kyrie and Gordon Hayward would have been the second and third best players in that series, and that changes everything else. But I think, just Giannis being out there just gives Milwaukee a legit shot. But again, you can't really see either of those teams winning an NBA championship. Really,
no.
I just don't see anybody from the East winning it. Because I still don't really buy Toronto. So, but I am excited to watch, and I'm really excited for this next round with the Pelicans. I keep saying Hornets.
Right.
So I'd like to, hopefully see that team in person, see how that goes.
All right, how about switching? Let's talk a little bit. Let's talk about the draft. We've got 3-4 days away.
Well, I know the big scuttlebutt now is I think the Giants are really holding sort of the key to the draft now. A lot of people feel like Cleveland is
whether they take a quarterback or not.
whether they take a quarterback or trade out, because the Jets traded all those picks to get to 3, thinking that their guy would be there at 3. But there's talk that the Bills, the Patriots, and the Dolphins all have the ammo to move into 2, where the Giants are sitting, and snag the guy that supposedly they love, Baker Mayfield. And again, maybe they don't even like Baker Mayfield. Maybe they like, they have somebody else completely on them, on their ring. But if the Giants move out, then the Jets are stuck with whoever they're stuck with. Or we could just have a pick where everybody just picks exactly who we think they're going to pick and just move right through. So who knows?
Yeah.
And there's also talk the Broncos moving up a couple spots. It looks like the Giants' pick is for sale for the most part. Like that they might be willing to just roll with Manning for a couple more years and worry about their quarterback at some other point. But
you think they take a quarterback? You think you take Barkley? You can trade out.
I think they either take a quarterback or trade out. I think Barkley's a fantastic player, potentially. But, running backs have short shelf lives. You're picking in the top 10. I feel like if you're taking in the top 10, you got a lot of needs. And I feel like he's a luxury pick, I'm sure he could help Manning a lot. Open things up for Odell a little bit on the outside. It'd be really exciting. I know the Giants fans would obviously love that pick. But the Giants fans are going to love the Giants no matter what they do. So I think if you can get a king's ransom for the 2 pick, then I think you take it. And then, people have also, there's still speculation that Barkley will be off the board and the Browns take him at 1. Assuming they like 3 quarterbacks equally, they know they get 1 at 4 anyway. So, but I know what I've read is that next year's draft class is supposed to be very quarterback light. Like there's no big prospects coming through, which puts the impetus on getting a quarterback this year even more so than before. So, and obviously you're waiting to see where Shaq Griffin gets picked.
Shaq Griffin, James Washington, Mason Rudolph. All would be great Steelers in my mind.
Well, it looks like I think at least 2 of those guys, most of the Oklahoma State guys, could potentially be. Well, probably not. Washington's got such a good skill set, but I think Rudolph is going to go in the first round. I do. I think we'll have 5 quarterbacks off the board by the time Arizona picks. I think Deshaun Watson. I think Jackson goes in the top 20. And I think Rudolph falls somewhere between 20 and 29. I think we're going to have 6 first-round quarterbacks this year.
Wow.
Because I think there's enough teams that like Rudolph that aren't going to get a chance to get him in the second round. And someone's going to pull the trigger on him early or somewhere in the first, late in the first. That's my theory anyway. I think even if you're the Bills and you don't move up and you're picking at 23, if he's the last of those 6 quarterbacks on the board, I think you roll with it. Assuming they don't get Lamar Jackson or somebody else. Because, the Cardinals desperately need a quarterback. The Dolphins need a quarterback. The Bills need a quarterback, plus all those teams in the beginning. And that doesn't even include teams like the Chargers, Patriots, Steelers, who all have aging quarterbacks that also need to find their eventual replacement down the road. So I see 6 going in the first round.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting.
Which bodes well for the Steelers, I think, as far as somebody that they can actually use this year, falling a couple more spots. Hopefully one of those middle linebackers. To slide in and hold the sport down for Shazier until he comes back. Because I'm confident that Shazier will come back. And I guess as long as we're talking college football, we'll talk about where I went to grad school, the self-proclaimed national champion UCF Knights. They got the banner and they got the rings. What do you think?
I gotta give them. They beat the team. They beat the 2 teams that played for the national championship. And so there's definitely credibility there. No question, there's credibility there.
And they didn't beat them fluky. They beat them.
by, what, 10 points?
Beat them by 10 points. They were the only undefeated team all year. And again, like you said, the team they beat in their bowl game beat both the competitors in the national championship game. So, at the very least, by association, they should be at least co-national champions.
They got to be in the conversation. I agree. I think I am getting a little tired of it, though. I mean, they're dragging it out a little bit longer than they needed to. But I guess you took advantage of spring football. It's good for recruiting. They gave out the rings, which I thought was classy. And they're putting up the sign now in the stadium, so we'll see.
Yeah. I read...
It's, I can't begrudge them because it makes, I would do the same thing. If I was the athletic director there, I would do exactly the same thing.
Yeah. And again, they did everything they could they did everything right for their season. And they were just never given the opportunity. Which is, the BCS continues to have that issue, so...
Yeah, because they're not going to recognize that team.
Right.
They're not going to recognize that conference.
And the fact that the team they played with from the SEC that beat both the teams in the championship, they beat the teams in the championship game head to head, and yet those two teams still made the top BCS top 4, which is just bizarre. Like, at least one of those teams should have been left out. UCF should have been in. I mean,
you can make that argument.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a money thing. It's an SEC Power 5. We don't want anyone else to play with our toys sort of situation, and that's what always ends up happening.
And you're never going to let them in there.
No.
I mean, you're never, ever going to let them in there.
No, because if they beat you, it makes your programs look bad, and it brings nothing to you, and you get less money, obviously, when you're sharing with more people, which they don't want to do. Again, it's just sad. It's a very sad state of affairs that we've got to this point. Yeah. But again, you can't add, I don't see a realistic 16 team. There always going to be somebody else that feels like they should be in. And I think if you keep expanding it, I don't think it really is in line with, college football as a extracurricular sport in college. I mean, unless you, readjusted it so that, people played football, and then once their eligibility was up, they would be able to use their scholarship to just go to school. You can't ask them to put any more time in on the field or any more games in the playoffs or anything else, I don't think.
No, you can't. That's obvious.
Yeah. I always did like that angle, though, where it's like, that you can play your sport and invest all your time in your sport, and then once you're done, you get to redeem you're on almost like an 8-year scholarship. So 4 years of being a football, and you get some kind of football degree, and then you still get 4 years to get your academic degree once you've given the school all that time and energy. It's a little out there, but I kind of liked it.
So, you know what, though? You have a case. Nobody can argue against you. You made logical points.
Yeah. So,
all right, I want to talk about something I read this week in Sports Illustrated.
All right.
Which was an excerpt from the book Caddyshack, The Making of a Hollywood Legend. No, The Making of a Hollywood Cinderella Story is what it's called. And immediately after I read the excerpt, I bought the book. Just some amazing things in there. A, the only person on the movie that didn't do drugs was Ted Knight. And it just said it was a cocaine marijuana fest. That everybody did it. I was intrigued to know that Rodney Dangerfield got it because he'd been so good on Johnny Carson in that year of 1979. But there was a lot of people that wanted Don Rickles.
Oh.
And then the part of Noonan got it because he said he played golf and he had to learn to play golf. But it was down to Noonan, it was down to Michael O'Keefe and Mickey Rourke.
Mickey Rourke?
Yep.
As soon as you said that, I thought we were going to get Noonan and then Kevin Bacon for some reason.
No. I think Kevin Bacon was probably too old to be in it.
Oh, okay.
In that role. Well, I guess not, though. He's just a pledge in Animal House a couple years before, so maybe not.
Yeah. I thought he had a pretty convincing golf swing for someone that just learned to play.
Yeah, I thought those things intriguing. And then have an A-lister, so they went with Chevy Chase. So then they built the movie around Chevy Chase. And then they got Rodney, and then they got Ted Knight. And they decided they wanted one more A-lister, so they got Bill Murray. And they didn't even, there was no, Bill Murray's part wasn't even in the original screenplay. There was no Carl. When they signed Bill Murray, they decided to create this character for Bill Murray.
Huh.
Which I find that pretty fascinating. And then that whole scene with Bill Murray and Chevy Chase.
In
that
the
was an add-on.
in the where in
that
the
didn't exist either. And they were sitting around one night and said, you know, we have Bill Murray and Chevy Chase, and they're not even in one scene together. And so the last night of filming, they added that scene.
was that improv or?
Yeah, oh yeah, and everything Rodney did was improv. And they said Rodney had a hard time because he's a stand-up comic, so he's used to getting a reaction from the audience.
Yeah.
And since there's no audience, he didn't know how his stuff was going over. So they just let him rip. They just let him just do his thing.
It's I mean, it still holds up as a comedy. Like, I don't know how
It
many.
does. It does. So I'm looking forward to getting the whole book now and reading it, but I enjoyed the Caddyshack excerpt in Sports Illustrated. That was amazing.
Yeah, it sounds good. And again, like I said, that movie. I think that's something there's that whole era of comedies that. A lot of comedies today seem like there are a lot of. It seems like there's less jokes and more references to things that have happened recently. And there's those movies that came out around that same time. There's all the, like whether it's Young Frankenstein or that just, they're not stuck. I mean, obviously there are some things that are very 1970, 1980, but most of that movie holds up today. Because you have really funny people doing really funny things, and it's not humor that's dependent on like something that was happening at the time. It's just generally funny stuff.
Well, Caddyshack was, and Young Frankenstein's classic.
Yeah. Like I said, that
Young Frankenstein.
No, that holds up perfectly today. I've just noticed there's a lot. Like I said, a lot of comedies today feels like it's a reference to things that have happened in the last 2 years, with no real jokes. It's almost like remember this, and it's opposed to building an actual joke around it. I'm not saying there aren't movies like that, but it seems like a lot of the mainstream ones have become just references to things that have happened recently, which is kind of sad to me. And I did not read a new book this week, but I did watch a lot of TV this week. I started the show Legion on FX, which is in its second season now, but I've only seen the first half of season 1. But based on that now, I'm going to download it on iTunes probably within the week once I finish out these 4 episodes. It's a very unique show. It's in the X-Men universe, which I wasn't exactly aware of because I'm not much of a comic book person. But it doesn't have the feel too often of an actual superhero show. Instead, the main character has been told his entire life that he's crazy, that he's bipolar, that he has all sorts of mental issues. So the things he sees in his head, things he sees himself do, that they're all in his head. And without spoiling too much, obviously if that was the show, it would be a very short show and that would be the end of it. So clearly that's not what's happening. But it's very well shot, incredibly well acted, and it's very intriguing. Because I'm 4 episodes in, I can't wait to watch more, but I don't know exactly where it's going. And again, because I have no reference to the comic books, I don't really know his story, which I always find helpful. So that way I don't already know where the story's going, which is nice.
I can see that.
And it's FX, so...
I'm finishing up McMafia. The last episode of McMafia is Monday night. I'm excited about that. It's been really, really good. Very well done. If I think so, did you describe it to me as the Godfather for a new generation?
I just basically read that off of somebody's blog, but yes, that's how it was described to me, and that's how I described it to you.
Okay. Well, I thought that was legit. I thought it was legit. Although, the Godfather at least had some moments of levity and some other moments.
Right.
This is just pretty serious, and I don't know. I mean, it's severe.
severe.
There's no likable people in this.
Yeah.
Like, there's no buffoon like Fredo.
And The Godfather, I mean, you obviously have, some of the moments of the wedding and then the garden and some of the Italy stuff. Like, there's some very, there are some very down, very beautiful, nice, that aren't intense the entire time moments, I suppose. And speaking of movies in Italy that are very intense, I actually watched one today. I watched All the Money in the World, the Ridley Scott film with Michelle Williams.
It's about John Paul Getty, right? John Paul Getty's grandson.
It is. It's beautifully shot because Ridley Scott is the director, Blade Runner, all those sorts of things. So it's a beautifully shot film. It takes place. I think they filmed most of it in Italy, so you get some beautiful landscapes. I knew very little about the story going in, so I don't know what parts of this movie are. They say in the beginning that it's based on a true story, but there's obviously still speculation as to what happened. And I do know from watching it, Christopher Plummer was phenomenal in the film as John Paul Getty. And I don't know if you remember this, but after the Kevin Spacey debacle, Kevin Spacey initially had that part. And they reshot all the scenes with Christopher Plummer in his place after the Kevin Spacey scandal. Not to tank the movie. And I couldn't imagine Kevin Spacey pulling this off. Like, Christopher Plummer is absolutely amazing as this part. He's everything I would expect a character like this to be. And I think the age and everything else really helps. Not to say you can't age people with, acting and makeup, but...
Well, who plays the role of the grandson?
I actually don't know. He was really good, though. He's kind of a minor part. Michelle Williams and Marky Mark carry the most, or they're in most of the scenes. And I'm usually not a big Mark Wahlberg fan, but he's actually quite good in this. And like I said, I don't know what the actual truth of the story is. I plan on maybe tonight after we finish recording, I kind of want to deep dive and read some articles and see what actually did take place. Because I'm not exactly sure. And I didn't really understand. I never knew that Getty really was literally the richest man in the world and had all those oil connections. And, he owned all of his precious art and he's just an insanely rich. And there is a really cruel line in the movie, but I do kind of understand it. And I guess this is taken from the real part, but basically, they ask him if he's going to pay the ransom for his grandson. And he says, if I pay the ransom, he's like, I'm going to have 14 other grandkids getting kidnapped every other month. And as cruel as it is not to pay the rent, I kind of get it,
When you say it that way, yeah.
Like, if you do have all these other grandkids, and if you paid, that initially, and this isn't much of a spoiler, they asked for $17 million for his grandson back. I think if he went out and paid it, you would put a target on the back of your other 14 grandkids, or anybody else in that family, knowing that we'll just keep kidnapping, they have to keep them, under lock and key in some sort of prison, because otherwise... Who wouldn't? Well, think of all the opportunists in the world who would just go kidnap his kids and grandkids and, his dog or whatever. Just, it's like, we'll kidnap him, we'll get paid, and we'll move on. So it seemed really harsh at the time, and then thinking about it, I was like, well, I kind of get it. And you could almost argue you were helping the other kids, but it's probably a step too far, but it does make somewhat sense. But it was really well done. It is... pretty, there's no moments of levity in this movie whatsoever. If that's something you'd be looking for.
Well, are you ready for season 2, Westworld?
I'm not super excited. I love the concept of Westworld. I didn't think they did a very good job with the show. I thought all of their quote-unquote big reveals were telegraphed early on. I thought they were giant gaping drive truck through holes in the plot. And I thought it was a lot of style over substance. So I'm going to give it a shot, but I'm not super excited to go back because they didn't do a lot to hook me the first time. How about you?
I don't know. I'd seen the original movie, and I thought even the first year they went a lot of stuff from that movie. I mean, I didn't see that much in that movie to make a whole series like that.
No.
So I don't know. We're going to watch it because I want to see where it goes. Kind of curious where it goes.
I know we get to see some of the other worlds this year.
Which would be interesting. I'd like to see that.
Including Samurai World. like I said, to me, it just felt like a lot of flash, a lot of style, not a lot of substance. And then it, I don't know, it felt like they were doing things for moments and not worried about how it fit into the story, and it didn't really work for me. I know a lot of people love it and they're excited about it, so that's all that really matters for HBO. So good for them. And hopefully, some of the things I didn't like season one will be maybe tweaked in season two after all the time off, but maybe not. But the good thing is there is an insane amount of content being made every day, so there'll be something else to watch without a doubt. So
Yeah, it'd be fun to see how it all plays out. I mean, it's good.
I did watch
Any
one
meals
of the.
this week?
What's that?
Any meals this week?
No, but I did watch one other movie that I'll talk about briefly because it has absolutely beautiful cinematography, and it's a very odd story. It's called Kimiko the Treasure Hunter. It's
Already heard of this one.
it's got just the cinematography is gorgeous, the color composition, the acting is really well too, but the story is basically there's this sort of 29-year-old woman in Japan who's she's kind of down and depressed, and she watches Fargo, the movie. And in the beginning of Fargo, it says this is based on a true story, right?
Right.
And she becomes obsessed with finding the treasure from Fargo that Steve Buscemi buries. And hopefully this isn't a spoiler for Fargo because it's an old movie, but in Fargo, he actually buries the money and puts a ice scraper along this barbed wire fence. So Kimiko travels to America to try to find the treasure from Fargo. And there's, it's not really a funny movie, which I thought it was going to be. It's kind of sad, but it's an absolutely beautiful shot movie. And then depending on your interpretation of the ending, it's either a very sad ending or a very beautiful ending. Depending on what you'd like. But I was excited when it was, when it came to Cannes and Sundance last year, so I did get to see it finally. So I can't recommend that as a mass audience sort of film, though.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So Thursday night, who's the first guy off the board?
I really have no idea. I feel like the Browns being the Browns, they might do something wacky.
See, and I think for that exact reason, the Browns are going to pick a quarterback with the first pick.
But which quarterback?
Get everybody off their case.
But which quarterback?
I don't know.
I mean, the thing if you're the Browns, like, if you do like Darnold, Allen, Rosen, and Mayfield, like, let's say you've got them all separated by a point. At pick 4, you can have any one of them. You're guaranteed one of those guys. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting.
It'll be fun to see.
I think it's going to be Josh Allen. Because it sounds, but I don't know. I just look at it. I feel like, people pointed something out pretty clear, though. They've gone over Allen's stats over the years, going back to junior high. Apparently they do that now. He's never completed that many passes. He's always had a poor completion percentage, no matter what level of competition he's been at. Sam Darnold always throws interceptions and fumbles the football. So it's hard to think, that those things are going to change, right? Who was your guess for first pick?
I just don't even know. I mean, I'm so confused by all the double talk and all the confusion and all the muddying waters. I just don't know. I mean, I've got 10 reasons why it should be Josh Allen and 10 reasons why it shouldn't.
And then, there always is.
I don't think the first pick will be Baker Mayfield or Josh Rosen.
No.
No.
Most likely not. Well, especially because, and this is pretty much draft across every level of competition in sport, Rosen is considered to be the quarterback with the lowest floor. Or the highest floor, sorry. Highest floor, lowest ceiling of the four. And I don't think you take the guy with the highest floor with the first overall pick in the draft. If you think all the other guys have the tools and elite things to be better than him, I don't think you take the safe pick. But that'd be my guess anyway. Although I really do like him, so.
Yeah.
But I think we've rambled on.
See how it all plays out.
Yeah. We'll obviously be back next week to have a lot of thoughts on the draft.
Yeah, next week will be fun because we can replay and talk about what we saw.
Yes, we can.
And be either really happy by the Steelers or really depressed.
And either way, it'll be really stupid because it's a draft and you never really know what you're getting.
That's exactly right.
Because as we know with the Steelers, I wasn't excited about a guy named Antonio Brown in the 6th round out of Eastern Michigan who ran a 4.640. And clearly I was wrong. It's just one example.
Yep. Well, let's see if we get any of the guys we really like.
Yes. So until next week, remember, please go to iTunes and rate us. Tell your family, tell your friends. And have a good week.